Now, live from Beijing, Katrina, tell us about what the Philippines has said about this incident.
Well, they haven't just said or described what's happened. They've released a number of videos and images really quite explicitly describing or showing what happened, they say, on June 17 when Philippine vessels undertook a mission to resupply the grounded warship, the Sierra Madre. They say that they were swarmed and outnumbered by Chinese vessels, that during the incident, the Chinese Coast Guard was blaring sirens to disorient Philippine sailors, that they were brandishing pointed weapons, including machetes and axes, and that when they boarded, they essentially acted like pirates, looting and destroying equipment. Now, the Philippine side has called this basically an act of piracy. One sailor was injured, he lost his thumb, and a Philippine general has demanded that all the confiscated equipment be returned and that the Chinese Coast Guard pay reparations for all the damage incurred during this incident.
And Katrina, those are some strong accusations from Manila. How has Beijing responded to those?
Absolutely strong words from Manila. Very, very different language used by Beijing. They say that the Chinese Coast Guard professionally boarded and inspected these Philippine vessels when they illegally intruded into this area Beijing considers Chinese territory that it calls Renai Reef, with not only resupply equipment, but also reconstruction equipment to really reinforce this grounded warship. The language used by Beijing said that the Philippines conducted dangerous maneuvers that threatened the safety of both sides. And Beijing has accused the Philippines of its main supply ship intentionally approaching and colliding with Chinese vessels to actually create this incident or this encounter. Now, we also heard from China's foreign ministry, who said that this incident basically is entirely the fault of the Philippine side, saying that this was the Philippine armed forces ignoring Chinese dissuasion to leave Chinese waters, that they entered illegally. It says that the Philippine side has broken a commitment to Beijing to remove this grounded warship. And he also pointedly said, the foreign ministry spokesperson, that the Chinese side did not deliberately take any direct measures against personnel on these Philippine vessels.
Katrina, great to get your insights. That's our correspondent, Katrina Yu, reporting from Beijing. Well, I'd like to introduce you now to Richard Heydarian, who is a policy advisor and senior lecturer in international affairs at the University of the Philippines. And he joins me now live from Manila. Richard, thank you so much for joining us. This is certainly not the first incident like this that we've seen between the Philippines and China, not the first time that we've seen both countries accusing each other of dangerous maneuvers in the South China Sea. But does this incident mark an escalation?
Oh, absolutely. So over the past year, we have seen close to half a dozen incidents, including collisions between Filipino and Chinese vessels. And at the same time, also China deploying very aggressive tactics like water cannons that could be potentially fatal. So the Philippines adjusted its tactics, including using boats that could withstand water cannon deployment by China. But this time, China did something quite different. It deployed essentially its troops, its maritime forces aboard Filipino vessels and forced the disarmament of some of them. So that could have triggered something very, very dangerous, similar to what happened in the Himalayas between India and China when folks, troops from both sides engaged in hand-to-hand combat. Gladly, the Filipino side was professional enough to stand down and not to fight back. But this could have gone wrong in many ways. So we're gradually seeing China's so-called gray zone strategy moving towards something much potentially explosive. And this is big because the Philippines is not alone in dealing with China. If there were to be casualties in the future, the Americans have made it clear that they could get directly involved.
And Richard, you've touched on the fact that this is very much a regional issue, one of great importance for the ASEAN bloc. That's the Association of Southeast Asian Neighbours. Is there enough urgency on the part of that bloc in addressing this issue? Because we know that, for example, the Code of Conduct has been in discussion for more than 20 years. It seems to be that the Philippines is perhaps being let down by some of its neighbours in addressing this issue.
To be absolutely honest, the situation doesn't look good. there doesn't seem to be any sense of urgency. In fact, what's happening right now is in the Philippines, there are many questioning whether ASEAN is helpful at all. In fact, many would argue in the Philippines that ASEAN has been enabling China by essentially not only turning a blind eye, but we see some members of ASEAN in different forms essentially blaming the Philippines for the escalation intentions, essentially engaging in what I call strategic gaslighting. So the conversation over the past few weeks in major fora in the region over the disputes has been something between ASEAN minus the Philippines, meaning the Philippines is supposed to be the outlier, the American ally, the exceptional case. And in the Philippines, many are saying maybe it's time for Philippines minus ASEAN. So it's a very tense moment. But kudos to Prime Minister Anwar Ibrahim in a major fora in Kuala Lumpur earlier this month. He said that he is going to engage in aggressive diplomacy and he's going to coordinate with President Marcos Jr. because Malaysia will take over ASEAN chairmanship next year. But this year, ASEAN chairmanship is under Laos, which, to be very frank, is a country that has very close and in many ways is dependent on China in many ways. So I don't think the Philippines is expecting much from ASEAN this year. But we're hoping that we can coordinate things for a much more robust kind of response or stance from ASEAN. But yes, you're absolutely right. Philippines is feeling isolated, and the countries that are supporting the Philippines are from outside the region, Americans or Australians or Europeans, and also the Japanese.
Right, Richard Heydarian, thank you so much for your analysis. That's Richard Heydarian, who is a policy advisor and senior lecturer in international affairs at the University of the Philippines.
Pleasure.